Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So today for my bonus video, I wanted to talk a little bit about Spider-Man Coming Home, which is a storyline in Ezekiel Sims, which I think there's a good chance is going to be the villain of the new Spider-Man film. He's like my new best theory right now, just because he's so much more complex than say like Vulture, and if Michael Keaton is going to be playing him, I think it'd be a lot easier for Sony and Marvel to get him if he were playing a much more interesting character. But the thing about the storyline Coming Home is that there's this big supernatural aspect, and I don't know how supernatural they want to make this new Spider-Man solo trilogy. So if you've never read it, Spider-Man Coming Home was written by J. Michael Straczynski. It's probably one of the greatest Spider-Man stories of all time. Maybe not the greatest, but definitely one of the best. And it's illustrated by John Romita Jr., so it looks amazing. But the whole idea of the run was to refresh the Spider-Man character, give him a whole new supporting cast of characters. There have been all these terrible Spider-Man stories in the 90s that people just did not like, so they're like, okay, we need to reboot this character. So what does that sound like? That sounds like what's going on in the movies. The Spider-Man movie franchise has gone through a lot of iterations in the last 10 years that haven't been quite as fulfilling and successful as they want them to be. So now they're rebooting the character, refreshing just the same way they did with Spider-Man Coming Home. So what a coincidence that the title of the new Spider-Man movie is Spider-Man Homecoming. The cool thing about the Ezekiel Sims character is that he has all the same powers as Spider-Man, but he's kind of like Uncle Ben. He's almost like a darker version of Uncle Ben, someone who took his powers and used them for personal gain. So he's super rich, and he kind of calls Peter on his philosophy, like, look at what you could accomplish if you embraced your abilities. A good example of that is right now in the Spider-Man comics, Peter Parker is head of Parker Industries. Now that's a whole other story, but it's just like a version of Spider-Man that's more like Iron Man. Rich industrialist Spider-Man with a giant company. So a long time before that, when the Ezekiel character debuted during this Coming Home run, he tried to call Peter on some of his bullshit. Look, you could be so much greater than this. Now, the really interesting thing where it gets really supernatural is where it explains how Ezekiel got his Spider-Man powers. The way Ezekiel got his powers is a little bit closer to the way Black Panther has his powers. He's connected to the Panther God with a totem, which gives him all these mystical abilities like King of the Dead, Black Panther. But in the comics, the original origin story of Spider-Man is that he gets bit by a radioactive spider. So Ezekiel tells Peter, look, I don't think that you got your powers because of that radioactive spider. I think that spider itself was trying to give you its powers. So you can see it gets really weird and supernatural. I don't think they're going to go that off book with the new Spider-Man films, but I do like the theory that they're going to weave in an Ezekiel-type character, like a more sinister version of Uncle Ben. Now, Ezekiel wants to help Spider-Man, but morally, they're at an impasse because what happened to Ezekiel is he decided that he needed a company behind him, he needed resources to be a hero, so he got his powers, but then was like, okay, I'm going to use my abilities to build this company, then I'm going to be a hero. But the day-to-day of running his company got so busy that he started using his powers less and less, so you get the idea. He turned into the man and stopped being a hero. So it's like a good example of what could happen to Peter if he fell off the hero's path. Like he's on the way to becoming this great superhero, but if he gets sidetracked by money and fame, it all goes to shit. The funny thing about the run is that, a lot of Spider-Man's biggest villains are based on animals. I think I used this Deadpool panel in the Deadpool video that I did last week. Just a joke on villains like the lizard, the rhino, you get the idea. During this Coming Home run, during this Ezekiel run, the way they explained it is that a lot of other totems that were feeding those villains were the reason why they were based on animals. So it's almost like they're taking the idea of the Panther totem in the Black Panther comics and using it in the Spider-Man universe. And that actually fed into the Spider-Verse, although I know a lot of people weren't big fans of the Spider-Verse storylines. But Spider-Verse is a completely separate thing, and I don't know necessarily that the new movies would go in the direction of Spider-Verse either, because it gets super complicated. I think they're going to try and keep it relatively simple, but they might tease some ideas of Spider-Verse. But here's my big question for you guys. Would you rather see Michael Keaton, if he's going to be the Spider-Man villain, play a version of, say, like the Vulture, or would you rather see them introduce the Ezekiel character? Because they really did rewrite a lot of Spider-Man lore during that Ezekiel run. Like, Spider-Man is not really a supernatural character, but they turned him into one during that run, so I think it really depends on how precious the original Spider-Man origin story is to you. Like, if you don't mind them changing a few things, it's not too bad, but you have to remember, for any movie, they tend to make it a little more linear, a little easier to follow. So I think they're going to let Doctor Strange be the supernatural character of the Marvel Universe. Spider-Man will still be pretty straight up based in science. So really bright Peter Parker, mechanical web shooters, Stark tech suit, probably not a lot of supernatural stuff going to be happening. But I just love the idea of Michael Keaton playing someone who's an antagonist without being a villain, who's kind of like this advisor trying to influence Spider-Man to go in a slightly darker direction, while at the same time having a lot of good ideas, like, look at all these things I can do with my company. If you really took advantage of your abilities, you could be one of the greatest heroes in the history of the Earth. All comes back to great power, great responsibility. Should you seek great power just for the sake of having great power? But officially, nothing's been confirmed. They're still trying to lock down Michael Keaton, so I don't know even if they do get him, if they'll reveal who he's playing. They might keep that pretty close to the vest, but the Spider-Man movie's coming next year, so they're actually going to start shooting it pretty soon. So just expect them to start dropping some Spider-Man bombs later this year. It's going to be really exciting. In related news, The Flash is back tonight, so I'll be posting a video for that after the episode airs. Be sure to subscribe to get it. If there's any other Marvel videos that you guys want this week, I'm working on some Doctor Strange. I know the Supergirl finale just happened. Yes, it does seem like they just introduced Power Girl, and they just introduced Azrael on Gotham. So I'll try to make some videos about that too. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening this week. I'm actually really excited. While you guys wait for me to post that Flash video, you can click here to learn more about Marvel Phase 4. Kevin Feige's been teasing all kinds of awesome stuff. And you can click here to learn more about the Spider-Man Homecoming movie. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.